Welcome to the Lair, a place where interesting people you may know tell you things you didn't. So grab a chair and your favorite vice and get comfortable. There are no rules in the Lair, but there is Laura Babcock. You know her from TV, and she is not into media monogamy. Let's find out who else is in the Lair.
Welcome back to the Laircast, Dr. Sevigny. I'm so happy to have you here. Your Laircast last time was one of our most listened to. You've got a fan base out there that love to hear your opinion. You opine at the national level. And so it's a privilege to have you back here. I really want to talk to you tonight, though, not about communications in general, because last time we got kind of wonky-ish about our own love of communications, but about Trudeau-mania. Okay. Because I have long wanted Justin to jump in the race. It just seems to me like it was kind of a manifest destiny kind of situation. He was going to do it. I'm glad he didn't wait too long. And I have my own theory, which I'll share at some point, about his chances. My husband, who also a fan of, I think, Trudeau generally, thinks that it's premature and that he doesn't have the gravitas. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Rob, if you want to make your argument.
Just more liberals, starstruck. This is the guy. We love him. You know, God, fuck his background or what he's done or what he's, ever done. He's got the right name. He's got the right look. He must be the guy.
So you're kind of thinking they're adopting another savior of the party thing, like a big savior like Ignatieff will come in.
Oh, yeah, that was totally Ignatieff. Oh, look at this guy. He studied, what was that, Harvard, that he was a prof at?
Which is an asset in Canadian politics, but not in U.S., we're finding out.
Oh, well, whatever. It was it was still, again, they were starstruck. Oh, look at this guy. He's so
you're
smart.
saying the Liberal Party, instead of doing the hard groundwork they need to do to be relevant, they're trying to pick a leader who will swoop in and save the party.
I say if they voted Bob Rae in the first time, instead of going through, I forget his name, from Quebec, Dion, then Ignatieff, then finally just throwing Rae a bone, get us to the next port, they should have got him in the first time, and they would be at least official opposition, I bet, because he's smart.
So, you're a Liberal. We're nonpartisan. We just have lots of opinions. You're a Liberal. How do you feel about Trudeau? Can he do it? Is this the right time?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for having me on.
No, we don't want any formalities. We just want to get right to the point. You're here to solve a marital dispute, Dr. Savigny. That's the only reason.
Your show's a Hamilton institution.
Oh, is it? Thank you.
And I'm happy to be invited.
I think we should all be institutionalized. But,
well,
I mean, in a good way.
Well, to answer your question, I think that the experience question has got a couple of sides to it, right? One is that he has been an MP for a good number of years now, right? Yes. And a very successful one. His constituents love him. It's one of the most diverse ridings in Quebec. It's a tough riding to win. It's a riding full of people who many people who live in desperation, and many people who are newcomers. It's a split riding linguistically, and yet he wins it, and he wins it decisively. And he wins it by going door to door. So from that perspective, I have to say that, there's more experience there than you think. If you think about it, even if you think of Stephen Harper, I think one could argue that Justin has just as much, if not more, political experience now than Stephen Harper did when he took over the reins of the Conservative Party, right? So
you'll get no argument from me because I figured you'd be on my side of this and Rob would be wrong. But here's my theory of it. Not only does he have that real experience, he worked for it. It wasn't just handed to him. It was tough neighborhood and tough riding. So, and he had that against him. Sometimes if you look like the heir to a fortune, people are going to think you don't have the ability to have it. They think it's given to you, everything's easy. So he had to do the hard work. He had to get elected and reelected. But there are a couple of other things that I think are important. And Chantal Hébert, I don't know if you've ever been on a panel with her, but I think she's a genius. And she said that if you say, well, he doesn't have the intellectual capacity of his father, what politician currently does in Canada? It's a standard that is, right? Like it's a standard that's unnecessarily high. Add to the fact that he showed some serious, and I don't want to use a gender-specific reference, Deirdre. Hey, I stopped myself. He has some serious courage to step into the ring for the Thrilla on the Hilla. He's got the ovaries to do the job, but that's still gender-specific on the other side, Renee. I don't want to use gender-specific. It's not helpful. He had the wherewithal, the inner strength to step into the ring with somebody who was a black belt in martial arts, had lots of weight on him, on national TV. He could have been bloodied as everybody was expecting him to be on Sun TV. Instead, he won.
What were they calling him?
The pony.
The prancing pony.
The prancing pony.
Right.
And my favorite part of it was after he won the fight in, record time kind of thing, as Ezra Levant, who had been trashing him all night, had to go into the ring and do the post suck up I'm with the winner interview. Justin made fun of Ezra, like as he was still catching his breath, right? And it was classic. And it was just like, even in that moment where we would all be exhausted, he still had his sort of political chops and made some good fun of the host. And so, it was a moment where I think people said, okay, not about his physical agility, it was about his ability to take a risk, to put himself out there, to possibly be humiliated. This is not the action of someone who's a well-created facade, right? Who's been primed for his whole life. Nobody would ever expose themselves to that kind of risk.
I agree with you. I think that while everybody, think about it, for all these years that Justin's been in politics now, everybody has been waiting for Justin to fall on his face.
Right.
Everybody's been waiting for Justin to show that he has no backbone.
Yeah.
He's never shown it. He's shown nothing but backbone.
Exactly. Backbone, that's the term we're looking for. Backbone.
Everybody's
we all have backbones, yes.
Not all of us have bone.
Everybody's waited for Justin to show that to betray his very moderate political values in favor of one agenda or another agenda. He's never done that.
So let's amp this up a bit, my argument that I've been making with Rob ad nauseum, and I've been testing it on people, right, all through Thanksgiving and stuff. I think there's a couple of constituencies that he has, I don't want to say in the bag because everybody's got to work for things, but hey Lauren, how you doing? Good, how are you? I saw someone reaching for scotch. I figured it must be Lauren Lieberman. I didn't even see the front of your head. I know. He goes for the scotch bar. So here's the thing, is that I think that anyone over 60 in this country is likely to have an affinity for his dad and an affinity for him by extension. So every person I've met over 60 in the last couple of months, I've said to them, would you vote for Trudeau? And they say, well, I'm not sure he has the gravitas, I'm not sure he has the experience, I'm not sure this, I'm not sure that, I'm not sure he's ready. And I would say, yes, but if you had the option of giving him your support or giving your support to another politician, would you give it to him? And they all say, well, ultimately, yes, because we owe his dad, or because, the potential for another Trudeau is exciting to us on some level. Then he's got the younger crowd, right? If you're under 35, there's no way that Harper can compete with that because he's charismatic and electrifying. So there's the squishy middle in between, which are people like my husband and I in our late 30s, 40s, yourself, right? That have all kinds of different values, and we want to see where he fits along that spectrum. But here's where I think that's what being the leadership race and the leadership before the next election will give him. A chance to be seen at that level, to weigh in on policies, so we get a sense. But if you've got the top and you've got the bottom and you've got, Chantal Libert said it perfectly. She said, if you don't think Justin Trudeau is going to win this leadership race, you're not paying attention to what the Conservatives and the NDP are already doing. They're already working the ethnic base because they're afraid that he's going to snatch that back from their recent, victory in that area. They're already working some ridings in Quebec that they think he has as strongholds. They're doing the Karl Rove thing of going after his strengths immediately. So effectively, they're already running against him as, a potential prime minister.
Well, if you think about it, it's a little bit scary because you have Stephen Harper, who's been in power a long time. His government is starting to show the cracks let's give him the credit that he's due. That a very successful government and politician,
tightly controlled.
Have governments age.
Yeah, there's fissures that have to come up from the pressure.
We see that with Mr. McGuinty's government.
Oh, we're getting to that. Oh my God.
And you look at Mr. Mulcair, who swept to power. sort of, in a fairly divided NDP, right? Which was divided between NDP traditionalists who are really people who are really committed to certain social democratic values, right? He's a liberal, I mean, who has moved to the NDP side of things. And, you know, you look at Stephen Harper, you look at Thomas Mulcair, they're not that far away from each other in age. Right. And then all of a sudden you have this incredibly fresh, young man who isn't an ingenue. I mean, he's come from a political wilderness in Quebec for the Liberals, right? I mean, there isn't a lot of love for the Liberal Party in Quebec right now, you know, particularly federally. And so Justin overcame all of that, mostly because he took the time to meet his constituents, and he took the time to meet every person that crossed his path, and he cared for them. And one of the things that I've
It doesn't hurt that he's got Rob's hair either.
It's true. I mean, one thing, it's true that neither Mr. Mulcair nor Mr. Harper have his dreamy qualities.
No, they don't have the dream. He has the dreamy factor.
I have a good story. He came to McMaster last fall, and it was a great event. I mean, there were quite a few young people, and he did electrify the crowd, and he really set their hearts on fire, which was a good thing to see. And it was a multi-partisan crowd. There were conservatives, there were NDP, there were of course liberals, and there were lots of students. And then at the end of it, he was doing his scrum or whatever, and one of the students, one of my students who was in attendance, came up to me, and she said, "Oh, Professor, I'm in love." No, sadly, no. I don't have his charisma.
Elvis effect. Men used to bring their dates to Elvis because she would fall in love with Elvis and then turn to the nearest guy for, you know. So there's going to be the Trudeau effect, right? Take your girl to a Trudeau thing.
No.
No, those are gay men.
I'm not.
You need a course in queer culture. Deirdre is the one to give it.
I'm sure there's an electorate for Justin there too. You know, but you know,
go ahead.
What is exciting for a lot of people is, you know how Harper always went on about the West wants in, the West wants in, the West wants in. Great, the West got in, and the West now has great representation, and the West is a player. Calgary is arguably Canada's most dynamic city, you know, in terms of great metropolises. Trudeau is kind of saying the youth wants in.
So here's my thing on the West, okay?
Yeah.
Is that, yes, he's saying the youth wants in and he's got the youth. But, okay, so the day after he announces, and, you know, he had the national media press corps following around like puppy dogs until the big moment. And CBC had confirmation on it before everybody else, right? You missed the CBC thing earlier. We were talking about CBC Hamilton, Lauren, and Rob did a big FU to Joy Coleman. Yeah, you can weigh in on CBC Hamilton later if you want to, but the room was divided. Anyway, so they're following him around. So he makes the announcement, right? And he has 24 hours of media saturation honeymoon time. What does he do with it? He doesn't go to a big student rally in Montreal where he would have people falling all over themselves to get in the front door. He goes into the heart of darkness of his father's policies, right into the West where they all hate his dad for sharing those oil revenues way back in the day, to a crowd of his biggest potential critics on that moment where he had the national attention. If that's not, what's the word we use? Backbone. Because no gender terms. If that's not backbone, I don't know what is. It's politically genius. He basically went to his biggest critical mass and said, here I am, bring it on.
And what he spoke there was something that I think Canadians long for, which is a socially progressive, pro-business agenda, right? And he was saying, let's not pick one business over another. Let's try to create a level playing field for entrepreneurs in Canada. And that's part of his youth vote. I mean, you know, if you look at it, and not only youth, I mean, everybody's being encouraged to be an entrepreneur now. I mean, shoot, I run the Masters of Communications Management program. So sorry for the plug, right? And
We just plugged Joey's hamon.ca for half an hour. Joey's thing. How much is your thing worth is the question for now. Joey's thing is worth 10 grand, I'm told.
it's we're just here to serve at McMaster, you know. I mean, but you know,
Or you let you see his thing for $32.
Yeah, Joey, I'd like to see his thing. Hey, per inch. Now, that's getting. Oh yes. Oh, see, someone's paying over here to see your thing. You got $32 from the woman in the black turtleneck. Oh, sorry, doctor. We digress.
It's a good digression. You know, Joey. People should.
No, we've got a doctor. No, I'm saying it's the juxtaposition. We have a doctor willing to talk to us here in the Laircast.
Well, I'm a big fan of Joey's, and I think everybody
who
should
isn't?
donate to his site.
Booyah.
Thank you.
It's I certainly did.
Just to have a little bit of a laugh, McMaster's been calling me and most of my friends because it's their 125th anniversary. They're looking for $125.
Very
so
nice. That's awesome.
and I think the MCM's worth a little bit more than $32. So there we go.
So the Mutual Admiration Society is complete. So let's get back to our mutual admiration of Justin Trudeau.
Well, you know, I mean, also, you know, to make things clear that he has competition. Mark Garneau is a very accomplished member of Parliament, you know, and well, he's a scientist. He's an astronaut,
and
and
we want another scientist. We saw the Dion experiment. That was a colossal fail. Yeah, I mean, if you can't communicate, who cares what your education is? Let's be frank. In politics.
And one thing that's true is that communicating. One of the great aspects of political leadership is making yourself a conduit for great minds. And Justin has up to now, and this has yet to be proven, obviously, right? I mean, has up to now allowed himself to channel people who know things that he doesn't know.
That's good.
And you know, one of the best things that a political advisor, I think, can probably tell a politician is know what you don't know. Yeah. And I get the sense from him that there is that.
Well,
now,
I don't
but
know
it's a sense. We're still waiting for him to prove himself.
Example of the Conservative commercials for the next federal election with Justin running for the Liberals. Ladies and gentlemen, he had a mother too. And then it's the picture of her doing the Britney Spears snatch shot going into Club 54.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, we're
No,
Canada.
we all
No,
fucking.
but we're not the conservative Bible Belt in the States. We don't care that his mom smoked weed and was a bit of a
No,
whore.
she more
We don't
than
care.
smoked weed. She's a loon and a disgrace to this country.
Hey, you got SOSers in the crowd. Come on.
No. Her behavior as our first lady was terrible.
Okay, Lauren, but what does that have to do with
See,
Justin?
but this is
Because the only reason we love him is because who his dad is, and he is not a clone of his father's.
No,
And
I would have to say the hair
today's
helps.
generation of immigrant does not know from that Trudeau.
okay. So
He's a conservative wet dream. It'll keep Harper around another decade.
okay, I like your pre-spin. You sound very worried. I get the feeling that well, the fact that you're giving me a pre-campaign commercial 4 years out tells me that you guys are crapping yourselves.
The campaign commercial says to me, it says to
We got
me
nothing
that
substantive.
because his mother was not perfect means that he should not be a leader. That's that
You guys gotta come up with a new
that's not
tactic.
continuous.
I think also.
Attacking his mama is not going to make you
Well,
win.
you know, I think.
Okay, let's let Alex get back to the discussion.
Well,
here.
hold on a sec, Dr. Sevigny. If you're wearing the SOS shirt. Hey, there you go. I gotta take a photo of that. Nicely done.
Well, I think also.
But will an attack on his mother possibly? I mean, if this is the best the Conservatives have on him, was that his mother was not the intellectual heavyweight of his father? I mean, how is that helpful?
She was also, what, 20?
And she was with the Rolling Stones.
That's
What
got to
makes me
be,
like her,
to be a
right?
first lady of a country, like, that's got to be,
So I don't think it'll work.
The way I think that would play actually is I mean, you got a good point. The way I think that would play objectively is I think a lot of people have transgressed, right? And I think that Canada is a land of second chances.
Totally.
Right? And I think that the idea of holding up, particularly attacking a woman, and a woman who now is a very sympathetic character. If you see her,
Please do.
how she appears now.
Yeah, Yeah,
right?
she speaks on behalf of.
You know, I think resurrecting stuff, it'll look cheap on whoever decides to do, and there's no guarantee.
Suggesting that I
No,
do the
no,
conservative
I'm not saying-
marketing,
I'm not saying
but
that.
he's not his father.
Yeah.
But do you know what, Lauren? I don't think we need him to be his dad. I think he's impressive already as himself. He has his dad's star
Parliament,
power.
other than tell somebody across the floor to fuck off. What has he done?
Well, his father did. It's
That
called
was his
Fuddle Duddle.
father.
For
No,
it's
but he did
Fuddle
that
Duddle.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
Officially.
He's never
He's
been in
also-
contempt of Parliament.
You'd like him better if he swore?
He has.
Okay.
So here's the
He's gonna raise
thing.
that.
You missed the earlier conversation where we laid out his attributes, and he'll have to prove himself. But let's face it, he's got the leadership. Nobody's going to challenge him for it. They would be robbing the Liberal Party of their best chance. And Harper and Mulcair are already going to work on it. Oh, well, let's get to McGuinty. It's a perfect segue. So it sounds as though a lot of people in the room are kind of excited by Trudeau Mania 2.0 or whatever we say these days. McGuinty, how does a man who arguably had a decent run as premier, you know, did some things like early childhood education, made some gains, seemed more like a dad than a bad guy. How does a guy like that go out in such a horrible way by unnecessarily proroguing the legislature, looking completely partisan and tactical at the expense of the business of the province? I mean, to me, I wasn't a big fan of McGuinty, but I had nothing really negative on him. A couple of scandals here and there, but what government doesn't have spending scandals? But the way he's gone out, I think has damaged his brand, has damaged his legacy. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. However, you know, if you look at it objectively again, he's a man who fell on his sword,
For
right?
his party.
Because if you look at the major problem with the Ontario Liberals right now is that everybody dislikes their leader. The opposition attacks McGuinty, whether it's Ms. Horvath or...
on his sword if he was the one who was being disliked. I thought you meant he fell on his sword because Vaporgate was coming around the corner and a contempt of Parliament for one of his key ministers. I mean, to me, that was the sword he was falling on.
I think that he is the lightning rod for a lot of the problem. If I suspect, and I mean, I have no science to back this up, but I suspect, my intuition tells me, as a follower of these things, that the people of Ontario don't have such a problem with his party, but they have a big problem with the leader right now. He's very unpopular. He was very unpopular entering the last election. I mean, the only reason that they came through is by putting together a really good campaign, and also the fact that the Conservatives...
By not doing power plants in Oakville and Oh, wait a second.
Yeah, and the Conservatives kind of imploded.
Right.
Would you suggest that why he's a three-time premier is because of the pathetic nature of his opposition in terms of leadership?
He has a thing against Horvath, just so you know.
No,
where he's
I'm
coming
talking about Hudak sucks balls too. So
from. Not balls. We don't use gender specific.
and John Tory blew that whole election.
Look at this prorogation, right? You have a premier. You have a premier who's...
I do not want to see it.
Need a long tongue for that.
On any level, do I want to see that visual? Sorry, we're not very mature, as you know.
Well, you know, I mean, the way I see McGuinty's action is that it was an act of political strategy.
Right.
He saw that he wasn't getting anywhere with this legislature.
Right.
You had two opposition parties that refused to compromise either with each other or with him. You had labor negotiations that were very challenging, both from a public relations perspective.
For the education minister to lose the educators,
Sure.
you know, was a brutal.
It was brutal. Yeah,
has been brutal.
And you know, but one of the things was that opprobrium, that loathing, was focused on the premier. So he took himself out of the picture.
But why did
And-
he have to prorogue? That was to protect his ministers and his government from more attacks, right? From more process on the Vaporgate.
I'm not sure about that. I think that a big part of it is that now the opposition will have to state their positions very clearly, because one of the things he said that he, strategically speaking, that he wouldn't come back, wouldn't bring Parliament back until there was some sort of deal on the table. And what that's asking the opposition to do is to state their positions very clearly. Mr. Hudak has stated his party's position pretty clearly, but we have yet to hear a really clear position from Ms. Horvath.
So
right?
why do conservatives like Lauren Lieberman hate their mighty leader Hudak so much?
That I don't know.
Because he's not mighty.
He's sexually attracted to him and it's conflicting.
You see, you're the one who keeps bringing sex into this conversation, Deirdre. We're trying to have a sex-free environment here. No, wait, a gender-free environment, not a sex-free. Sex-positive, gender-neutral. Okay, I'm getting the rules down.
When you look at the provincial Conservatives, and they have people like Christine Elliott, and they have people like, they have people federally like Jim Flaherty, who would be such a powerful player provincially. And I guess they look at the different things that they can do, right?
Well, you know what? I think they're frustrated. I think they're frustrated because they had Big John Tory, who died on the most ridiculous hill I've ever seen over the school.
Although John Tory is a very decent politician.
Yeah,
and
well,
a
had
very.
come on, decent man, decent
Well,
businessman,
okay, that's a
terrible
good. It's
politician.
good way. I'm sorry,
Well,
I
'cause
misspoke.
He
yeah.
died on
I
the
agree with
hill
you.
of private school funding, of all the election issues
He's
we didn't
never
care
won
about.
an election ever.
No, it was crazy. He doesn't have the instinct. But the other thing was that, so then they have Hudak come up, who's supposed to be the ingenue of Mighty Harris. You guys are just jonesing for the days when you had big bad Mike in power. And anybody since Mike is not good enough.
Charisma and leadership that Timmy doesn't have. But I don't think you addressed my point, that when you're saying that Dalton nobody likes, I'm not sure anybody ever did. He was just the bland vanilla option amongst the other flavors I really don't
Would
like.
you say he was Dalton?
Do you remember the last time I brought him here, Laura?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
You brought
I
Dalton
brought
to the
Dalton,
Laircast.
D-O-L-L-T.
They brought Dalton, the cutout of Dalton, and we talked to him in the Lair, actually. We had a chat with the fine premier. Yes,
Questions?
Should we
He's the
still be
cutout of
calling
Doris
the
Brown.
premier in the media? Like, they still refer to him as Premier McGinty.
But is he technically
Is
the
he
premier?
technically
He's still
still the
premier.
premier?
He's still premier.
Yeah, until there's
Yeah,
a
see?
leadership
I think
check.
he's
Till
given it up.
January.
No, he hasn't given it up. He's just given his party the ultimate protection from the attacks that were coming
I
at
know when
them.
the leadership and the terms, but where? Where's it being held? Do we know?
The leadership convention, they've got up to 6
Where?
months. Is it really?
Where?
January 25th.
Niagara, Toronto? Did they announce a location? No.
Well, I think that Dalton, to tie us all the way back, can't take a run against Trudeau because the damage he's done to his brand is too significant. And if that was just a distraction or a distraction to say, ooh, he's not leaving because he's lame duck or because he's hated or because he's protecting his party, he's leaving because he has ambitions for the leadership race federally, I don't think that's the case, right? How could he possibly challenge?
There's never really been an Ontario premier who became prime minister, right? Because I think Ontario is such a preponderant part of Canada's. It's the largest province, right? You enter politics a winner, and everybody's cheering for you, and everybody loves you, and everybody leaves politics a loser,
Yes.
right? And that's one of the toughest things about that game,
Not
I think.
everybody.
Not getting in that game.
Yeah, you're not running for mayor? I thought you were thinking about it.
And but that whole
regardless, 'cause-
loser scenario scares me.
Yeah, but you know what, Deirdre? Who cares? Like, honestly,
But-
people
well-
hate us every time we open our mouths. Every Laircast I will do, people will hate everything that I say or don't. Who cares?
And
I'm just saying.
And then it takes some time, and your
If the
reputation
good
is
you do
Yeah,
is
is
greater than
rehabilitated,
the attacks
right?
you get, who cares?
because you know what it is. You know what it is. People get tired of you.
Yeah.
They get tired of seeing you on TV every day. They get tired of seeing you in the legislature.
You're breaking
They-
Lauren's heart over here, Doctor.
They,
They're just warming up to
We've
me.
had TV shows for 15 years. Don't say this to us.
know.
Our egos can't take it.
well, it's a bit different in TV, but in politics, because people, half the people invest all their love and hope and dreams in you, and the other half just really don't.
Well, it's
you know,
impossible.
and when you're there, you end up really, after a good number of years, you end up disappointing a lot of the people who loved
sure.
you and believed in you.
Well, look at Barack Obama,
And-
for instance. Like, what are you going to do?
Indeed, and the other people just end up confirming what they thought was true from the beginning, right?
No, you're right.
But all of it's perception, and by the end of it, it's very hard to leave triumphant,
Yes.
right? Because you leave because it's the public service, and the public arena is tough.
So you have to give
It's-
credit to guys like Bill Clinton, who left on a down and came back and is triumphant again. It takes tremendous charisma to be able to recreate yourself and come back in politics and be loved again, right?
Well, I agree. I mean, you're already seeing the sort of rehabilitation of George W. Bush.
Yes,
you know,
good luck on that front.
Well, it'll happen because people don't like the idea of something negative in their past, right? They always like to rethink it in terms of the
He
present.
can try to rehabilitate, but I don't necessarily think it's a foregone conclusion that it'll work. You know?
That's true. Yeah.
Look at historically how people speak about Richard Nixon now.
Sure.
You have Stephen Colbert who says he admired Colbert, who admires Richard Nixon.
But he's being facetious. It's an irony position. to
No,
take.
no,
He does
when
not
he's
admire
actually-
Nixon. He's mocking the man.
Nixon was an amazing president.
Okay.
As a Canadian teenager, Joey, you might be fixated on only the foibles. But have you studied the giant tome of his
small little
accomplishments?
foibles
Come on.
that he had, like.
Hey, Lauren's right. Nixon did a lot of good things. EPA,
Yeah,
a lot of
it's
things
true.
he'd believe he brought in. The thing was, he was a nut job.
And no, he was paranoid and evil. No, maybe not evil, just sad. But
Elvis Presley a drug czar.
that was maybe the best thing he did.
He gave him a DEA badge. That's it.
Yeah, well, Elvis is a good guy, and Nixon not so much. But Trudeau, you agree with me, and that's why we really wanted you to hear, so I could say tomorrow morning at breakfast, Dr. Sevigny agrees with me, Rob. The debate is over about Trudeau. That's the only reason he's here. I'm not petty. I'm not petty. McGinty, you know, I think he's hurt himself. But is there any other wisdom you want to leave us with?
Well, I don't know. The way I see Justin, and one of the reasons I think a lot of people get excited about him, is that if you look at the internet, right, you see big uptake among two demographics, and that's 35 and under and 55 and over. And you kind of see the same uptake on Justin in both demographics, right? You see a lot of people, and I'm not convinced it's because of his father's name, actually. You know, I think
The Kennedys of Canada, though?
there's an element of that, and people like the idea of a historical progression and a resurrection of history. I mean, this Conservative government has banked on that a lot with bringing the monarchy back and actually trying to put a re-emphasis on Canadian history, and
Yeah.
some of which is good, some of which is debatable, you know. But what's neat about Justin is that I think that he actually is a man of ideas,
Yeah.
and I think that he wants a new way of doing politics, and I think that what we're going to see from him is an attempt to do something that Canadians haven't seen yet. And we saw it with Obama, and that was to awaken and sort of set the hearts of a lot of people who are feeling pretty down right now about politics on fire.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And you know, I mean, the way I like life is an alternation of light and darkness, right? I mean, and first we fall, we feel bad about ourselves, we feel terrible, but somehow we pick ourselves up, we get up, we look around, and to quote Mark Halperin, who's actually my favorite author ever, my fiction author, and a great conservative, he says we pick ourselves up from darkness, and the glories that we knew shine not as they were but brighter. And I kind of see that with the Liberals right now. I mean, you have the Conservatives who've bound themselves into an ideological tangle on the right. You have the NDP who've bound themselves into an ideological tangle on the left, and an internal ideological tangle, trying to decide whether they want to be Liberals or not. And then you have a lot of open space in the middle. And I think that the Liberals haven't had a leader who had the charisma, the vision, or the ideas to bring it forward. Does Justin have all that stuff? I'm not sure about that.
Add to that the legacy, the sheer star power of the name, the fact that we're dedicating our time to talk about it, and we're way out of we've never done this for another leadership candidate. I think you have a serious point. And did you know that this gentleman over here used to eat breakfast with Justin?
Is that right?
He did. He was friends with Justin's nanny, and he would sit there and have breakfast. Are you going to tell us the story about Trudeau in the bathrobe, or do I have to do it for you?
Only if this guy goes on a microphone, because he always talks
go on
away
a
from the
microphone.
microphone.
On a microphone, tell us about
If
Trudeau in his
not,
bathrobe.
grab another drink.
All right, here's my story of Pierre Trudeau. I knew Justin's nanny, Diane, went to school with her. So, being the long-haired biker I was at the time, I got permission to come onto the property. So I would arrive on the property and I'd park my bike and walk to the back of the house and sit at the servants' table with Justin having breakfast. And one morning, in walks this disheveled, much smaller man than I'd ever envisioned. Walks in, hair all tousled, wearing a white terry cloth robe, and he looks at me, looks at Justin, he says, "Bonjour, Justin," said something else in French that I didn't know, looked at me, said, "Bonjour," basically whoever you are. He turned around and he walked away, and I thought two things. Wow, there's the guy that said, "Just watch me," and he must really rely on security at this place, because I'm just some long-haired hippie freak sitting at the table with his kid.
Margaret's, and you're coming over for some of that weed.
Possibly, but
Didn't you tell me she had her botanical skills on display all
yeah,
over
she
the
had
house?
a couple pot plants on the on her balcony.
Nice.
They had a marvelous I forget what he called it, but the room was all white. First time I'd ever seen built-in speakers on both sides of the fireplace. Beautiful white leather couch, and we would just go sit in there and enjoy ourselves for an entire evening. I found myself out in the backyard overlooking the Ottawa River at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Diane and I are standing there, fairly stoned, and I'm looking out over the Ottawa River, thinking, how many prime ministers stood here and made decisions that affected us all? And then I hear rustling in the bushes, and Diane goes, "Relax, it's the RCMP." They were literally everywhere on the property.
Don't you love in Canada that the First Lady can have her own pot plants in the house that's swarming with RCMP and nobody cares? I mean, Michelle Obama gets criticized for having a garden in the backyard of real vegetables.
And think about when that was.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man.
Yeah, and I got to say, I think thanks to Diane, Justin got quite an upbringing, because every Saturday we'd take Justin out to her parents' farm out in Navan, and Justin was out there with pigs in the dirt and cows and stuff that you'd never ever think.
Oh, wait a second. There's the experience that he's got then. He's going to be used to being with pigs in the dirt.
Sorry, Alex. Oh, sorry.
Well, the thing is that the genius behind Justin Trudeau, and I think the kind of glorious element of him, and the thing that makes a lot of people feel really good about him, is that secretly, I think many NDPers love Justin Trudeau.
Sure.
I think secretly, many Tories love Justin Trudeau.
Oh, Lord,
Love the thought of it.
love
And-
on for Justin.
And I
Don't
think
lie.
and I
Don't
think
lie.
and
You
I
were
think
there. You
and
were
I
there.
think I think
Hating me, quit hating me.
and I think many liberals like to be skeptical about Justin Trudeau,
Yeah.
right? And all told, that makes for a really interesting next federal
Oh, it's
election.
fantastic. I
you know,
love it.
because
What's been
because it's the kind of thing that just gets everyone talking.
And you know what? Let's end on this point, Alex. This has been a loud, boisterous, raucous, completely disrespectful group as always here in the Lair, which is why I love all of them. But when he was telling the story of hanging out with Justin as a kid, the room was dead quiet, right? There's something magical about that whole thing, and that magic is not to be underestimated. I know you conservatives are going to come up with some mean... because it's respect to Grandpa. All right. The conservatives will not give an inch here. Thank you, Dr. Sevigny, for being in this institution of the Laircast.
My pleasure, as always.
Nicely done.
Chats in the Lair is a Power Group production. Visit us at powergroup.ca or laircast.com, or check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.